Well, good morning, everyone. This is John Craig, and you are with us this morning on Let Us Reason Together. And I am so glad that you are joining us. And you may be listening to the archive, or you may be joining us with the live. I hope you're live right now, and that you just call up a friend and say, "Hey, do you want to listen to one of the best programmings here on LambTube?" No, I'm just kidding. But we do have a good time. I am your second day of the week host here on LambTube for Let Us Reason Together. Every Monday morning at 8:45, we join together with a live program. So make sure you set your little setting there and the little bell to be reminded that when we're live that you can join us. And so I want to just say that this show is based off Isaiah 1:18, which is, "Come now and let us reason together, says Yahweh. Though your sins are as scarlet, they will be as white as snow. Though they are red like crimson, they will be like wool." And this is where we sit down and reason out current events, cultural shifts, and of course, this week's Torah portion. We can either push back or push through. Nevertheless, if iron does not sharpen iron, sparks will never fly, let alone ever get a fire going. So without a little heat and a good midrash, how will our hearts ever get soft and moldable enough to be transformed in the way that the Spirit, the Ruach HaKodesh, wants us to be? So today, Monday, December 17th, it is the 9th day of the 10th month of Kislev. I actually got it right this week. And in the Hebrew year 5779, that's on that calendar. And you can interact with us there in the chat room. We'd love for you to join us. And I want to say this: make sure you go in and give us a thumbs up about this program. We want to make sure that we get lots of thumbs up. Why? Because the more thumbs up that we get, the more we can get and spread this show around, and shows like it here on LambTube, because we want to get that word out, and we want that to start getting into people's YouTube feeds. So there you have it. Well, what is today? Besides the 17th of December, it is Ruthless Fight Against Negative Emotions Day. How's that? You deal with negative emotions? It's the fight them ruthlessly. It's also Obedient Child's Day. It's a good day to ruthlessly fight against negative emotions in our children too that cause disobedience. How about that? And then it's Comfortable Position Day. So if one position doesn't work, then maybe like vertical doesn't work, then go horizontal. And that's
Hey, let's do it together.
Horizontal. Okay.
Now go the other way.
Okay. That's not real comfortable. So, but nevertheless, let's get the Comfortable Position Day. And then Christmas Tree Tinsel Search Day. What? Well, we don't do Christmas trees, but that's actually on the list. Search for the Christmas tree tinsel. Tinsel? We used to put those little tinsels on the trees, like little aluminum foil hanging dingly things they call tinsel. That was way back when. We don't do Christmas trees anymore.
We haven't done Christmas trees for a long time.
I know it's been a really long time. I was just saying that, like way back.
Actually, on our tree back in the day,
yeah,
we didn't. Anyway,
but since then we said, "Father, forgive us for putting an idol up into our house." And then it's Fur Seal Day. Fur Seal Day. SEAL. Fur Seal Day.
What?
Fur Seal
Fur,
Day.
like FUR.
FUR.
Because first seal almost makes it sound like you're saying first seal.
Oh no, fur like I guess, is it Save the Seal Day? Or
I have no idea.
I don't know what that's about. It's just on my list. It's unvetted. Today is unvetted holidays that people are just actually acknowledging around the world. It is, how about this? It's Barbie and Barney Backlash Day. Did you ever get a Barney?
Jonathan had a Barney.
He had a Barney?
I love you. You love me. We're a happy family with a great. Anyway.
I always want to say, with a knick-knack, paddywhack, give the dog a bone. So man, keep rolling.
Wrong song. That is completely the wrong song.
Oh, okay. I'll have to say I never had a Barney, and I never had a Barbie.
But you do have Barney. You do have a Barney. You did have a Barney, and I still had, they're in your house. And I'm sorry, action figures are Barbies. If you had an action figure, that is a Barbie.
No, I had G.I. Joe.
That is a Barbie.
I had the big G.I. Joes. Like back in the day, the big G.I. Joes that had the fuzzy hair.
Hey, I know I haven't been introduced yet, but I've got to speak on this. It is not a Barbie. They're action figures.
Thank you.
Then Barbies are action figures too.
Negative.
Barbies don't qualify for action figures.
Absolutely not. Barbies don't have guns. They're not
Barbie get a gun.
Military dudes.
Right. I've never seen Barbie in camo.
Me neither.
Yes, I have.
You have?
They have Barbie camo.
Oh no. Okay.
They just ruined G.I. Joe.
There's a point that you have to draw the line.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
I'm right there with you.
Oh my goodness.
All right, I apologize.
No, that's
I've had this discussion with Jonathan and John so many times. I'm sorry. Same look, just male and female. To me, they're all Barbies or all action figures.
You're such a girl.
Whatever.
That's all I can say about that. You know, boy, you're so misogynist. Oh,
I have never said that.
No, you haven't. Someone probably get on there later on watching the archive.
Don't even say that.
So we get on the archive.
They're like, the words in your mouth.
They'll troll us. They're going to troll us now.
Barbie haters.
You just ruined G.I. Joe for the world.
Well, you know, right there you go. Well, I just want to say this. Is there anything about why they shrunk G.I. Joe to small and then they kept Barbie big and tall?
It's you've seen this feminism thing going on in the world where men are supposed to be under women, or you know what I'm saying? I don't know.
Yeah,
that's how they're pushing.
By the way, the camo and for all my Barbies, the clothes were made, and so many people make their Barbie clothes, but the camo would be pink. So maybe that will help you, James.
No.
No, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. That's a wannabe. You go out there in pink camo.
I'm going to go hunting next year in pink.
Did you ever see a lady in the army there with you in pink camo?
I have not. You wouldn't be allowed to.
It just wouldn't work out there in the field, would it?
Against regulations.
It just doesn't work that way.
Nope.
Oh my goodness. Well, so that's why we have Barbie and Barney Backlash Day.
At least I'm right there with it now. I didn't have the backlash until all of a sudden Barbie and G.I. Joe became the same thing.
Just leave it to some young lady that grew up in West Texas.
You've heard
I want to tell you this: in West Texas, most people, like 99.99999% of West Texans, do not call G.I. Joes Barbies.
Oh, so you're the 1%er.
No, in our congregation, we've had this discussion. And everybody, at least that I know that's female, agrees they're the same thing.
It's not the same thing. It's just not. It's just not.
All right.
Moving right along. It's also Boston Tea Party Day, National Chocolate Covered Anything Day, and Stupid Toy Day. There you go. We'll just call it Stupid Toy Day.
There you go.
Do you ever have a stupid toy? I had a stupid toy that lasted one day.
I had a glopper.
I had a what?
It was a glopper. My grandmother got it for me, and it was green, neon green. It's up there. It's in the attic. Yeah, it's in the attic. I can get it out and show it to her. Yeah. And you did the handle. It looked like it was only about that big, and you did the handle, and its tongue would roll out, and it would come back in.
That's a glopper?
That's what I called it as a little kid, as a 6-year-old. It was a glopper. And I
feel like there's another name for that.
I'm sure there's a good name. I have no idea. But, I should just run over there and get that glopper out, and we could all play with it.
Oh, my goodness.
You can hit John in the head with it.
Yeah.
Get the tongue could go to your ear.
No wet or dry willies.
Yeah, plug hanging it up so nothing leaks.
All right. So I had a stupid toy.
What was your stupid
that
toy?
lasted one day? I had a laugh box.
A laugh
Yeah,
box?
one of those boxes. It came in it was a little plastic box. It came in a little sack, and you push the sack just covered up the box. That's what it did. But you push the button, and it laughed.
I'm gonna go get it.
And it lasted one day because I wanted to know how it worked. So, and when I took it apart, it never worked after that. I put it back together and it just never worked.
I spent my childhood taking things apart and trying to put them back together, and they never went back together.
Why? Why is that? Why is it can work coming out of a factory, but it can't work after? I guess that is all about buying another one. That's how you sell more. Oh man, I messed that one up. I never got another laugh box after that. But it was great. It had like 3 or 4 different types of laughs. Okay. How about this? And a few things being observed this month. Well, I just have one on my list because there's really not being a lot of things being what's that? Seriously. All right. So he sent me a note.
I did. I sent you a note. Well, what am I supposed to do? It's like a mute or sign language.
You do this.
I thought about that. We need to get a little, when we do that, we need to have a little sign on our deals like him.
I like that. Yeah, a little.
It's supposed to be smaller, but hey.
You're special, James.
Yeah.
Very special. My wife tells me that all the time.
Well, they're special, and then they're special.
I think I am special.
Okay. Well, maybe this is a good time to put this in because it's Universal Human Rights Month. Even special people have human rights.
Yeah, amen to that. Amen.
Are you special?
I'm special. James is special.
You special, honey.
You're gonna get us in trouble.
We need a positive. We need a positive quote of the day. Positive quote of the day. When I let go of what I am, I become what I might be. Special. That's by Lao Tzu. That special is my addition. When I let go of what I am, I become what I might be. Funny quote of the day for you special people. Jules Renard says, love is like an hourglass with the heart filling up as the brain empties. You know what?
Think about that.
Yeah, but these are my quotes.
No,
from last
because
week.
you would be able to think because the brain is emptying.
Oh, you know what? Here's the thing. These are last week's quotes. I didn't give you updates.
You said the same things last week?
I did say same things last week. But you know what's really cool is that they really go with what we're talking about today.
That's sad that it's a repeat.
It's a repeat. I'll have to here in a second. Maybe I can pull up the fresh ones for today because if I try to do it in advance, I can't go forward on the calendar on my little website where I get my quotes. So anyway, all right. Verse of the day. We'll go back to maybe visit that here in a little bit if I can pull them back up.
You're not going to have time.
So verse of the day, John 13:16. Well, actually, I have 2 verses of the day. John 13:16. Truly, truly, I say to you, a slave is not greater than his master, nor is one who is sent greater than the one who sent him. And I was just going to throw in something about being special, but let's
go ahead. Let's hear it.
Well, it's because you're special. And then 1 Kings 2:3 is out of the Haftarah. That first one is from the Brit Hadashah, and this is from the Haftarah reading. 1 Kings 2:3 says, keep the charge of Yahweh your Elohim to walk in his ways, to keep his statutes, his commandments, his ordinances, and his testimonies, according to what is written in the law of Moses, that you may succeed in all that you do and wherever you turn. I like that.
What was that?
I like that. Okay. All right. We're special over here. We're special in Texas. We're special in South Carolina. And well, you know what? We've already I already have y'all joining me right now. So yeah, over here to my left is my beautiful bride, Miss Sandi Craig. And over here that's been giving us this great insight. Great insight. My beautiful friend from South Carolina, James Myers. Have you ever been called beautiful before?
That's the first time.
You don't want to discriminate.
No discrimination here.
I appreciate that, John. Thank you very much. Speaking of beautiful, where's Tom at?
I don't know.
Our beautiful Tom. We're
beautiful Tom.
We're working on our connection, so we're waiting. We're waiting.
You may have signed in before everybody this time again. I don't know.
I hope not. I hope that's not why we've not been able to connect.
Isn't that what he did like a week or two ago? He went in and he went live before everybody. Is that right? Wrong?
Yeah.
No, but we were able to set up right, so that didn't
happen. Yeah, not this time. So there might be some internet issues or something going on. But well, let's talk about what happened on this day in history, December 17th. In 1728, I thought this was very interesting. The Congregation Sharif Israel of New York purchases a lot on Mill Street in Lower Manhattan to build the city's first synagogue. That was in 1728 that they purchased that property. I just thought that was interesting how far back in our nation where the first synagogue was built. And then in 1777, France recognizes independent British colonies in America. 1777. So France was, I guess, probably the first one to recognize the independence of what became these United States of America. And then in 1862, this was also a very interesting thing in history that I didn't know. 1862, so this is the time of the Civil War. General Ulysses S. Grant issues Order Number 11. Get this, expelling Jews from Tennessee. Did you know that? 1862, something like that happened. Yeah. Expelled.
And what side was Grant on?
Grant was the North, those Union armies,
What did he just have a thumbs up?
No, he's going up there on the northern part of the country is what he was doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
We are talking about
No, I definitely was pointing up from South Carolina there north. So
there you go. See, this is us guys understand that type of talk.
Definitely not giving him a thumbs up.
No. All right.
I was wondering because we are talking South Carolina and Texas.
Now, let me just say this. Don't shut off YouTube just because we're from the South.
Yes, do not.
Right? And technically, Sandi was born in Nebraska.
I got to Texas as soon as I could.
but we have good people in the North, and it's just we in the South understand that the victors write the history, and the truth about the history of the Civil War has actually been twisted. And
we did a show on that on only visiting this planet.
Yeah, it was
really good.
Really
Mark
good.
Brought in some historians, and they were really taking care of some myths that have been perpetuated.
Yeah, because it's all about states' rights. It wasn't about slavery issue.
All right.
It was one thing, but it was about states' rights and that self-determination. The whole ideal of slavery was actually going away. That type of they were actually getting rid of slavery. It was a process. It was in place.
But they don't learn that in school.
But they don't learn that in school. They say the North and South is all about slavery. It's not about it. It's about states' rights. And if we knew that today, we would actually, if it was about states' rights, then our state legislatures would still be sending our senators to Congress in Washington instead of voting by popular vote. From the states to send senators. I mean, that's even one of the things that have come out of that, in my opinion. So we should go back to the way the original Constitution was written. There's a reason for that. Going on, how about this? 1903, the Wright brothers. Remember those guys? Not the wrong brothers, but the Wright brothers. Make the first sustained motorized aircraft flight at 10:35 a.m., piloted by Orville Wright at Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. So there you go. The first sustained flight was on this day. There in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina in 1903. In 1965, hey, remember the Astrodome? I think it's still there. I don't think they demolished it yet. The Astrodome, I don't think they use it for anything. In 1965, the Astrodome was opened in Houston, Texas, and the first event was not the Houston Oilers. No, it wasn't the Houston Oilers. It was Judy Garland and Supremes concert. That's what opened up the Astrodome.
That was a pretty good concert.
Judy Garland and Supremes. So that happened in 1965.
It doesn't say the Supremes?
No, it says and Supremes. So maybe it would have sounded funny, and the Supremes. No, maybe not. I don't know. 1969, the U.S. Air Force gets. I love this. Okay, because I know there's a lot of people that follow the UFO stuff out there. So get this: USAF, the United States Air Force, closes Project Blue Book, concluding no evidence of extraterrestrial spaceships behind thousands of UFO sightings. Well, maybe I can suggest this: that there's no evidence of extraterrestrial spaceships. Maybe they're all high-tech terrestrial, created
by our government
as top secret. Maybe that's what it is.
Let's think about this. The Vatican has a telescope. Hold on, I'm a little loud. But
no, you're good.
But basically, it's called Lucifer, the telescope that they have.
Yeah.
And it is specifically they are awaiting some being, which I think is the Antichrist, to come, and that's why they got this telescope. And then we spend money to search for these so-called no UFOs are out there, but they're paying like I think what was it, $1 billion last year to search for these extra life on the other planets. It's insane. There's extra life out there. They're called fallen angels.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
Bingo.
Yes.
Bingo. There you go. That's exactly right. Well, and then in 1986, this is my last one, Mrs. Davina Thompson makes medical history by having the first heart, lung, and liver transplant at Papworth Hospital in Cambridge, England. Yeah, can you imagine? Heart, lung, and liver all at the same time. That was in 1986. So I'm skipping the famous birthdays. There was one that was on there that I thought was interesting, but it's not on my list today.
Whose birthday?
Whose birthday? Whose famous birthdays?
No, I mean, you said there was one on your list. I was like, well, who was it?
Well, I'd have to go back and look it up.
You don't have to look it up.
So,
I just wondered since you said it.
Since I said it, let's see. Famous birthdays today. Oh, yeah. Pope Francis is 82 today. Pope Francis needs to be... John. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, moving right along.
We are called to hate evil.
He's special.
We're special. If everybody's special.
You just define how you want to define special. Okay. All right. We're ready to move on to the lighter side of things.
I thought we've made pretty much all of this pretty light.
We have been making things pretty light. Okay, so we're still working on getting Tom on, but we're going to jumpstart our brain with some wit for the day and some points to ponder. Are you ready to untwist your brain, Sandy?
My brain's not twisted, thank you.
Okay, maybe it will be after this. These are 10 funny cat one-liners. Okay,
they're gonna be cats. It's gonna be funny.
All right. So it's not a husband, wife, male, female, bridal, groom type of thing. I've been on that for a little bit. We're just gonna
tell us about our cats.
We're gonna talk about cats. Where's our cats right now?
Where are they? It's silent.
I know they haven't had a fight today yet. Oh, there's one that's just come out from behind the curtain.
It's funny. We say it.
Say a cat. Just in time, the cat shows up. All right. So number one, what do you get when you cross a chick with an alley cat? A peeping Tom. Number two, why don't cats play poker in the jungle? Too many cheetahs. All right. Number three, what is a cat's way of keeping law and order? Claw enforcement. That's true. What is the name of the unauthorized autobiography of the cat? Hiss and Tell. That's how Amariah does it. Our grandmother. Yeah. She'll laugh at my jokes. She will.
She laughs at you.
She does. Okay. What is and claps. What is a Moggy's favorite color?
A what?
A Moggy. What's a Moggy's favorite?
What's a Moggy?
I guess it's a type of cat in England. Purple. Okay. Moving right along. Did you hear about the cat that swallowed a ball of wool? She had mittens. Get that? Okay. All right. Think about that one. Points to ponder. Okay. What does you have to unwrap your brain. What does a kitty like to eat for breakfast? Mice Krispies. Mice Krispies. How many cats can you put into an empty box? How many cats can you put into an empty box? Only one, because after that, it's no longer empty.
What you should have just done is tried out what you and Jonathan did so long ago and put tinfoil on a cat's feet and then just did a video.
That was Jonathan. That was just Jonathan.
You were helping.
I laughed. I just simply laughed.
It was wrong.
Okay, so I'm just going to make a suggestion for all of you younger viewers that
don't do it.
Put aluminum foil on your cat's paws.
No.
And see what they do.
John, you were
first.
there.
You got to try. First, the challenge is getting it on their feet. But once you get them on their feet, see how they. Okay, I laughed. It was hilarious. It was really funny, and it didn't hurt the cat.
It was mean.
It's funny. What do you use to comb a cat? A catacomb. And there's our cat right there. That's Simba. And why is it so hard for a leopard to hide? Because he's always spotted. Okay. Well, I think we need to do commercial break. All right, we're ready to go into segment number one. And James, you've got the Haftarah Brit Hadashah. What have you got for us today? Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. All right.
So today the Haftarah. Actually, we'll go ahead and just go through it's 1 Kings 2, 1 through 12. And it's not real long, so I'll read it real quick. So now when the time of David drew near to die, he charged his son Solomon, saying, I am going the way of all the earth. So be strong and be a man. He said, keep the charge of Yahweh your Elohim, to walk in his ways, to keep his statutes, his commandments, his ordinances, his decrees, according to what is written in the Torah of Moses, so that you may succeed in all that you do and wherever you go and wherever you turn, so that Yahweh may fulfill his word, which he spoke concerning me, saying, if your children watch their way to walk before me in truth, with all their heart and with all their soul, you shall not lack a man to sit on the throne of Israel. Moreover, you also know what Joab, son of Zeruiah, did to me, what he did to the two commanders of the armies of Israel, to Abner, son of Ner, and Amasa, son of Jether, whom he killed, shedding the blood of war in peacetime, and putting the blood of war on his waistband and on his sandals and on his feet. So act according to your wisdom, and let his gray hair not go down to Sheol in Shalom, but show kindness to the sons of Barzillai and Gileadite, and let them be among those who eat at your table, for they befriended me when I fled from your brother Absalom. Also, behold, you have with you Shimei, son of Gera, and Benjamite from Bahurim, who cursed me with a grievous curse. And on the day I went to Mahanaim, I'm sorry, these words are a little difficult, but when he came down to meet me in the Jordan, I swore to him by Yahweh, saying, I will not put you to death with the sword. Now don't let him go unpunished, for you are a wise man, and you will know how to deal with him, and bring his gray hair down to Sheol with blood. Then David slept with his fathers and was buried in the city of David. This the days that David reigned over Israel were 40 years. 7 years he reigned in Hebron, and 33 years he reigned in Jerusalem. Then Solomon sat upon the throne of his father David, and his kingdom was established firmly. So that's our Haftarah portion. And what I wanted to kind of go over was this first part where it says, he's telling him how to basically, as a king, he's going to be king, and he's basically giving him his last words. And he starts off with this, and I think this is the most crucial part of what he's saying here. He says, so be strong and be a man. Keep the charge of Yahweh, your Elohim, to walk in his ways, to keep his statutes, his commandments, his ordinances, and his decrees, according to what is written in the Torah of Moses, so that you may succeed in all that you do, wherever you turn, so Yahweh may fulfill his word, which he has spoke concerning me. But the thing that I saw there, and I mean, it really kind of hit home with me, was if we keep his Torah, if we keep his commandments, it says we'll be blessed. It says that basically by keeping the commandments of Yahweh, that's how you have a good life. That's how you reap the blessings that you sow. And I just, also when we were looking through this, it says, if your children watch their way and walk before me, and he says, walk in truth. And Yeshua said, I came, and basically he was telling the woman at the well, he says, again, we will worship in the Ruach, and we'll worship in Emet, truth. And, that's something that even today, you can just look around at this world. We are not worshiping him in spirit and truth. We are worshiping, there's so many people that have gotten away from the commandments. There's so many people that have gotten away. And am I saying we're going to do it perfectly? No. But I think it's Psalm 51. We see teshuva. Whenever we do fall off the way, the narrow path, when we slip off, it's important that we walk the narrow path. And when we do, we commit teshuva when we mess up, and we repent, and we seek God's face, and we turn back to him. But I just kind of wanted to talk about this. And another little interesting little thing I wanted to talk about was, if you notice, David is kind of saying, all these people have done me wrong, get them back. And the people that had not, he's saying, they befriended me. I thought that was, not that it was strange, but it was almost like he was warning him, hey, these people are evil at their core. So don't let them, basically he's warning them, saying, hey, don't let them get over on you. And he tells them, but I don't know, I'd like to hear what y'all thought on that too. But just walking in the Torah, we're blessed. And a lot of times they talk about the Torah today, and people they think it's just rules and regulations, and they don't understand that that's by walking in what God says, his commandments, his statutes, and judgments. That's how we walk in his blessings. That's how we reap what we sow. Or it is, all right? No, that's right. But anyways, that's what I got today. What do you guys have?
Oh, okay. There we go. That's really good, James. I think on that first part where it was, I think this point needs to be emphasized, and coming from a perspective of being a pastor of a congregation since 2005, working in associate or type pastoral roles before that for many years, I see this one thing, and it says that you pointed out in verse 2, where he says, be strong, therefore, and show yourself a man. And And then he gives the qualifications of what this looks like. So this is from a Hebraic perspective of showing ourselves as men, and that is to keep the charge of Yahweh your Elohim, to walk in his ways, to keep his statutes, his commandments, and his ordinances. I mean, I gave that as the verse of the day, and I think that is really, really significant how that precedes that. Show yourself a man. Now, because one of the things when I think probably the very first message I ever gave in front of a congregation. So this wasn't a Bible study, wasn't anything, but it was the message of the sermon needed a lot of work, but it was my first one. But the title of the message was, "Where are the men? Where are the men?" Because what I have found that over the years, and I've been through a lot of years in life, what I have noticed is that the number of men in many congregations are diminishing. They're the in terms of quantity of men. There are always more women and children in congregations, are represented in congregations, than men. And my biggest question is why? Where are the men? Why have the men been so dumbed down to think they have no responsibility within the kingdom, within congregations, within the families, that they don't feel like there's value to go and be part of what is significant, of even what David, the king of Israel, was telling his son Solomon, that to show yourself a man, you need to do some things. And I say, well, what he's saying here has nothing to do with the congregation, but it does, because it says that we're to keep his commandments, ordinances, and testimonies. And the fourth commandment is that we're to keep the Sabbath. And the keeping the Sabbath doesn't mean that we just take a day off. Because taking the day off is not really the Sabbath, because the command is that we gather. The command is that we gather with God's people, is that that's the reason that we have a holy convocation, a time that we set apart to be with Yahweh. And you can take that over to Hebrews, where it says, don't forsake the assembling of yourselves together, which is the habit of some, but all the more as you see that day gathering. And the second part of that I see really takes us back to Joshua chapter 1, verse 8, and verse 7 and 8, where it says, only be strong and very courageous. Be careful to do according to all the law which Moses, my servant, commands you. Do not turn from it to the right or to the left, so that you may have success wherever you go. That's part of this command, this charge that David's giving Solomon, because he wants his son to have success. And it says, this book of the law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do according to all that is written in it. For then you will make your way prosperous, and then you will have success. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not tremble or be dismayed, for Yahweh your Elohim is with you wherever you go. I think there's a significance in this charge that David is giving to Solomon, because he says, if you're going to be successful, and if you want a king to remain as promised in our lineage, then you must keep the commands. You must train your sons to keep the commands, to follow these statutes and ordinances, so that you can have success, so that you can really show yourself a man, that you'll actually from that find courage. You'll be encouraged. You'll be able to keep your path straight. You'll be able to always have life in that relationship with Yahweh that causes us not to become bored. And I understand, in a lot of congregations, I think for men, they're like, you're not speaking to me. It's boring. It's the same message over and over again, because in many congregations, it really is always a salvation message. It's dumbed down. It's seeker friendly. I mean, that's what happens in churchianity when they lose the basis of the foundations of Torah. And from there, we begin to lose our meaning and our focus, and then our purpose. So this really takes us back to, what are we about? Now, James, you had mentioned something, and I think this chapter is really loaded. And part of that being loaded is, why would he say not only watch out for these guys, but you need to take them out? But I would without doing a lot of study in that, I would have to say that it is really a pretty strong standard where perhaps we have lost in our Western culture because we want to be nice. We want to be nice, and we think about, wow, that's really strong. He wants to take these guys out completely. But if these men are wicked and they do evil, then evil that is in government, that's in positions of influence, will only undermine the authority that God puts in our lives. And so whether we want to look at it, I mean, today we can take a look at it as a strong metaphorical language in how we relate to people, but really in the enemies of our soul, we have to take out the enemies of our soul. We have to remove and purge all wickedness, because if we don't, what do you get? You get the swamp. You get Washington, D.C. You get a special counsel that is always looking for a crime. They're looking for a man. They're looking at a man to find a crime, because that man happened to be associated with the person that got into power that they didn't like. So let's destroy the person in power by destroying all the people around him, because of the old idiom, birds of a feather flock together, is what they like to say. Well, if all these people are bad that are around President Trump, then President Trump must be bad. I mean, that is the narrative that people want to use. That's what they're demonstrating by what they have. So they try to find something evil to make the whole structure crumble. And unfortunately, I think there's a lot of backlash. There's a lot of people in this nation say, we're just sick and tired of the evil. Get rid of the evil. Everything else will be taken care of in the wash. So anyway, there's some thoughts that I had. So James, you want to wrap it up for us in the Haftarah portion?
Yeah, we could sorry, I was taking notes here. Last night when I was looking through this, I kind of got what you were talking about. I had the first thing that he tells them is guard your life. Then he talks about guarding the Torah. And then it talks about guarding your realm, guarding, around you. And what brought to mind was what happens after Solomon, who becomes king? We look at his son became king, and instead of listening to the elders, instead of listening to the wise ones, he ends up listening to the wrong ones, and we end up having a divided kingdom after that. And he didn't follow the same standard that David had given Solomon. So, I was just kind of looking through this, but I just saw, guard your life, guard the Torah, and guard around you. And basically he's saying, if we uphold the Torah, if we uphold the teachings of Yahweh, his instructions, his commandments, life will go well for us. But if we decide to, be our own king and follow the laws of this world and the things around us, things will go wrong. And the people around us will suffer for it too, because of how we're living and how the things we're doing. But yeah, there was a lot in this, but a lot of wise words here is what I kind of read.
Yeah. And one of the things, I mean, I hear you wrapping it up, and you're getting my brain just thinking here. and I'm thinking, okay, because the word guard and that word Shema and Shamar and that which was given to Adam to guard and protect in the garden. And I just think about the responsibility, because what happens when we become believers, our desire is think of it this way: when we become a believer, we begin to partake from the tree of life. But how often does Hasatan really want to come in and begin to try to eat away at us to where we'll slip over, and he wants us to take a bite from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, where we begin to rationalize. We begin to try to say, well, is this right? Is this wrong? Or can I bend the rules a little bit? But the command is always about guarding the Torah, guarding our lives according to the Torah. Why? because we got to go back to what happened in the garden and recognizing we have to guard it. And sometimes guarding it requires that we take action. And as he's saying to Solomon, it's going to require removing enemies from your midst, because those enemies are going to take the garden from you. And just a thought, something else that goes with it. James, thank you for the Haftarah portion. That was really good discussion this morning. And I want to take us over to our next segment, and that has to do no longer with funny cats, but what does screen time really do to our kids' brains? Actually, I want to say, what does screen time actually do to us? And I came across an article this last week that hit the news, and it was based off of I think it was ABC's 60 Minutes report on screen time and some of the new discoveries that they're finding out about the development of the brain and children's brains and the amount of screen time that they are experiencing. So how does that affect the development of the brain? This is really close to my heart because we have a 10-month-old granddaughter. I see so many kids walking around today with their heads in their phones, their heads in a tablet, it's not necessarily behind a computer screen, and it's not necessarily in front of a television set. I mean, I think my generation, it was probably a generation that for many people grew up behind a television set. I didn't necessarily do that because we didn't have TV. We had one channel living in Norway, but I did watch at times when we go on vacation and sit behind a TV for many hours of the day. It messed me up. But let's look at the tablets. There's a lot of different things that are going on in tablets and in the phones, in the flicker rates of our computer screens, and the effect on the brain, the effect of the development of our children's brains, because we know that is really, really significant. We want our children to grow up to be sharp. We don't want them dulled. We don't want them to be disassociated with society, with the inability to relate to reality. And let alone, what about the actual development of the brain? Well, one of the consequences that I found was out of a New York Times article. It said, is screen time bad for kids' brains? And it says this, that adolescent brain cognitive development, there's a $300 million project financed by the National Institute of Health. The study's aims is to reveal how brain development is affected by a range of experiences, including substance use, concussions, and screen time. So screen time is where we're focusing here. As part of an expose on screen time, 60 Minutes reported that heavy screen use was associated with lower scores on some aptitude tests and accelerated cortical thinning. And then it says a natural process in some children, but the data is preliminary and it's unclear whether the effects are lasting or even meaningful. Now, part of the reports that I heard is this cortical thinning is that place where we process our immediate reality. This is where we're relating with the things that are going on around us. We're relating with the people that that are coming across our path. It's our emotional connection into things. It's how we actually empathize with people or disconnect with people. How we have a sense of right and wrong within our reality. All of these things are right in that cortical area, and it creates a thinning. Now, as people age and get into and become more elderly, and I would say as they, probably get into their 80s and into their 90s, there is a natural process of cortical thinning, but they're finding that screen time is causing that as well. But they said they were looking into this even more because there's a process that the brain develops and children's brains develop in different ways at different times in their lives. So it's going to be a pretty long study. But we look at what the screen time is today for our children, is that on average, adolescents are behind a screen at least, or teenagers are behind a screen at least 4.5 hours a day. So that's mainly heavy usage on their phones, not so much on tablets, but on their phones, mainly social media and that. In fact, how many times do people are more on their phones and social media in the same room with the people they're communicating with, but instead of having a real conversation, they're doing it on their phone, where that is diminished. The other things that came across, and this is from a Psychology Today article from 2016, and this was written by, I'm going to give credits to Liraz Margalit. She's a PhD. And it says that screen time is an inescapable reality of modern childhood, with kids of every age spending hours upon hours in front of iPads, smartphones, and televisions. That's not all a bad thing because of all the educational apps and that type of thing. But what's troubling is that studies are connecting delayed cognitive development in kids with extended exposure to electronic media. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services estimate that American children spend a whopping 7 hours a day in front of electronic media. Other statistics reveal that a kid as young as 2 regularly play iPad games and have playroom toys that involve touch screens. The concern and what they are discovering, it's impeding development of their abilities that children are so eager to foster through the tablets. So they think the tablet's doing one thing, but it's actually going to impede the process of development, which is the ability to focus, to concentrate, to lend attention, to sense other people's attitudes and communicate with them, to build a large vocabulary. All those abilities are harmed. So that's it in a nutshell. These are some concerns that I have. It goes into a lot more in the discussion, but I wanted to put this on the table because even I don't know how homeschoolers are doing it today, and I know a lot of people in our audience homeschool their children, but we do have a lot of our friends, a lot of our grandchildren and our nieces and nephews, especially when they attend the government schools, the public schools, they're switching from books to tablets. And books to computers, and they
most
issue
already
those.
Have switched. You don't get books anymore. You get a tablet,
and they're using those in the classroom. That's what you read during the course of the day. That's what you study from. I mean, that's what you type into. I mean, they're doing all of that from behind screens. Now, the other side of the story is the flicker rate, and that flicker rate has. The concern is that they have actually developed the flicker rate. This is not conspiracy theory or anything. You can look it up. You can find the white papers on it. But they have put into all of our televisions, our computer screens, our phones, and our tablets a certain amount of frequency within the flickering of the screen. Because if you take a photograph of your screen, you're going to see lines in it. What are those lines? You just stop the flicker. And what that flicker does is it actually puts your brain into a certain state, and where you're more you're less attentive to the things that are going around, and actually they can use it to bring about hypnosis and suggestion and to change attitudes and the way we see things. So here it is. What do y'all think? What do you see as concerns, and what are you seeing with this type of problem in our culture that everything centers around? You have something to say, Sandi?
Well, the bottom line is that they've been out to take the dumbing of the world specifically the United States, but face it, the westernized world even in of itself, but especially the US, has been occurring for some time. And we've had this downward spiral of lives. Well, first with the education, then, things with the television, things with getting our focus off truth, off of learning, off of bettering ourselves, and just to become basically zombies and drones of the government. And it's one more tool that's used. And here's the problem. People are so busy that the devices, the electronics, become the babysitter, or even if it's momentary, rather than the interaction, because people's lives they have too many things that are on their plate, too many things that are demanded of them from society. But with this, it's just another way to cause our families to be divided and separated, the death of a nation, the death of a society, the death of truth, because our children become they become pawns that can be used. Let's look at the generations, because this also affected the millennials subsequently, is that they can be raised in a home of believers, but the minute that the school and the electronics and everything have put into place, so they can be very impressionable with the suggestions that are given by where they spend their time, which is in the school and the worldly environment. They've taken that generation. You can have good kids. The school system has such influence, college, etc., that without heavy prayer, they're easily taken out. And I believe that all of this sets up a society where you are just mere pawns. Just what do the powers that be call it? Cattle, what did they call us? Eaters?
Useless eaters. Yep.
And that's what we're becoming. I mean, think about it. The flicker weight, how we just stare at the electronics, and we have to now. I mean, my whole job, even though I'm on a computer all day long, that's where my eyes are. And that's where society is, and it puts us in the place where we can become exactly what they want us to be, without YHWH and his word. And that's why we need to be praying. We need to pray that the effects are null and void. The side effects of having to be in front of these screens are null and void, and that we have to keep our children away. Come on, people. Get them away from the television. Don't give them electronic toys. I mean, I'm not talking with a screen, and we can't play into the game.
Yeah. Well, and what they're saying is that it's very, very important to limit screen time, and with no more than 2 hours maximum, because after that you really start to see the deterioration, even in the course of the day, of brain activity. So there's some things going on in the chat room, but I have an opportunity for James. What are you thinking about this?
Yeah, the one thing that I was reading on here, because I was trying to look up the article, but I found an article on New York Times. It's called "A Dark Consensus About Screens and Kids Begins to Emerge in Silicon Valley." And the first quote, it says, "I'm convinced the devil lives in our phones." These are people from Silicon Valley speaking about this. But it says that sometimes the people who are basically in the Silicon Valley's known for being their technology and developing technology. And it says the people who are closest to this, basically they often are most weary of it. And it's because they understand what's going on. They said that the consensus in Silicon Valley is they don't want their children anywhere near a television.
Yeah.
And, for a long time, I've known that they've used TV to basically persuade us to get us to go the way they want us to go. And you just look at the media itself. You've got one station that is far right, and then you got about 5 stations that are far left. when it comes to news. And the whole point of it is first of all, to divide, and they know that you're going to pick one or the other. And they're dividing us we're so different in our beliefs and things like that. But another thing is I'm very ADD. I know you guys see me moving. I'm always like touching stuff. But for me, if I get to watching YouTube, say, I'll just continue on and on and on and doing that thing, because once I get on something, I just do it. And then but for me, I have to really watch how much TV I watch. How much, if I play, I don't even have games on my like tablet or anything, because I'll get there and start playing games, and I won't do anything else. Mm-hmm. It's a dangerous thing. I see it more and more, and I go through the mall and you'll see these kids are already playing on their tablets. It's really insane. Just how we're using it as a babysitter. It's scary. I had an aunt growing up that I used to think she was very spiritual. She started realizing the thing about Christmas, Easter, like when I was a kid. I used to think she was a nutcase, but now, oh my gosh, are we so alike? Because she took the TVs out of her house. I have to be careful. I could go that wild with it, but she, I look at it now and I'm like, wow, she really knew what she was talking about. But as a child, I'm like, she's nuts. But like today, she was so right with all this stuff that we've got to be seriously careful and prayed up constantly.
That's really interesting. You said something. This was actually one of the articles, is how a lot of parents are just so frazzled that they give their phone over to their child to occupy them as a babysitter. Get out of my hair. Here's my tablet. Get out of my hair. And play some games. Just, leave me alone for a little bit. Chill out, whatever. Well, but what is that doing is that it's actually creating, and one of the things that they're finding in the studies is causing these children to have programmed responses instead of creativity. So you go through a program, whether it's a game or a learning game, you begin to be programmed to give certain responses versus you're limited to what it's only showing you. So which actually diminishes one's ability to think creatively and to think outside of the box. And so think about how millennials are today, especially of those that have, here we are growing, we have a society that's a constitutional republic, and yet they think that we're a democracy and that government should pay for everything. Where does that come from? I think it comes from a culture that's been raised on programmed responses, input, output, instead of actually thinking about the philosophical reasons of what is best for all of society. And there's also some things in here that I wanted to mention in the chat room in regards to what was said about the flicker rate. Considering the blue screen, the blue colors that are coming out of the screen, those really affect the retina and harm the retina. Flicker rate, Joe says, it hurts your vision. And there was some other things that got moved here.
Sorry.
Yeah, you're reading the comments. So that I wanted to mention that was really good.
Do you remember what it was?
No, because I was going to read it. Causes the eyes to deteriorate. Commercials, they flicker a lot. Frequencies transmutes people's DNA, which causes them to become addicted to a particular frequency. It's being weaponized to be used against the masses, in my honest opinion. I wear the blue light blocking glasses. That's okay. That's good, Tova. You can actually put a blue light screen on your computer screen, or you can put the glasses on, which is really important. I've talked about it, never done anything about it, but that's good. Imagine that. And then, so those are just some of the things that are being said here in the chat room as well. Some really good points. I think we have some things that we need to look at, and what can we do to influence our children and our grandchildren that are being subjected to this? Can we influence how they're being raised, or begin to speak the truth, so that those in our families actually understand that these are actually being more detrimental than helpful in developing our children. I mean, remember, a little's good, a little's okay, but don't get fixated on it. So, all right. Well, how are we doing on time?
Time is almost gone.
Time is almost gone. And Tom, we had Tom down for the Torah portion today.
Well, I can just say a few words about it.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about the Torah portion.
Well, because we know that this Torah portion is very prophetic. Of course, all Torah portions are prophetic as well. But I wanted to focus in on a couple instances that happened here in the Word. First, we see the reminder that in 47:29.
And this is what's the Torah portion this week? Vayeki, and that's Genesis 47:28 through 50, verse 26.
And he said, anyway, so we have in Bereshit, or Genesis 47:29, when the time drew near that Israel must die, he called his son Joseph and said to him, now, if I found favor in your sight, please put your hand under my thigh and deal kindly and truly with me. Please do not bury me in Egypt. So we have this reference here. First off, he is trying, I believe, that Yaakov wants to make sure that we remember that Israel, that his children, his grandchildren, those that come after him will remember that they are truly not a part of Egypt. They are truly not a part of the world, that they are simply temporary sojourners in this foreign land, just as we are. Egypt represented that power, that assimilating power that could potentially change them and what they believe and what they see. And just like what we're talking about with the news article, it's because Egypt seemed to be this melting pot because the whole world was there. They had sold themselves into slavery, everything they had. So Jacob, when he asked and said those words, it was really symbolic to his kids that there was a land that they were promised, and this was just temporary. Remember, you are not the world. Egypt is not your home. But let's take it a little bit further, and let's go to Genesis 50, verses 24 through 25. Joseph said to his brothers, I'm about to die. God attends, he will attend you and bring you up from this land to the land he swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov. When Elohim attends, he will attend you, and you will carry my bones up from here. So one more time, we hear about leaving the land, but here's something else. We keep hearing this word, Pikod Yevkad. And what is that? That's attend. He will attend. We hear that word several times in just those verses. And when we look at what they mean, it's a combination of truly remembering, or visiting, to taking note, to attending to. It's something more than just attend me. It's not that, actually, because the point is Joseph is promising that he wants them to remember that God will deliver them from Egypt. But it's not the only time we hear that phrase. Remember, YHWH is going to deliver them. So we're still already looking at something in the future. But we see in Exodus the same phraseology in Exodus 3, verses 16 through 18, where he says, go and gather the elders of Israel and say to them, the Lord, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov has appeared to me and said, attend, I have attended to you and what has been done to you in Egypt. And I said, I will take you out of the misery of Egypt to the land of the Canaanites. They will listen to your voice. So here we have Pikod, what? You were nothing? Okay.
No.
So we have this doubling again that we saw in Joseph's farewell speech. And here it is really saying, hey, I'm going to take care of this. Take note of who I am, that Yah is delivering them. He is the deliverer. He will deliver them. And this is just a temporary home, this doubling. There's lots of explanations. I know I'm short on time. There's lots of explanations from Rashi and Nachmanides and some things like that. But the bottom line is we are to take note that the deliverer is at hand, that this is a temporary place. When any phrase is repeated over and over, much less in the same sentence or two, hello, people, take note. Because because he is trying to tell us that there's something more out there, that he's going to take care of it, that to take note, to remember who we are and where we're going, to remember where our home is, because he is going to attend to us, to take care of us, he has that journey already prepared if we will simply but trust. So we need to remember that in this day and this time too, that this is just temporary. This is temporary. All the things that are happening to us are temporary, that there's something out there, that we need to remember the deliverance that's coming, the deliverance that's already at hand. All right. That was fast. I only had like 3 minutes. So there you go.
Well, that was a good 3 minutes.
I think it was 2 actually,
right?
But
right. So, I know that's, I was just thinking about this. Do you realize that it was the promise to Abraham was that that his descendants would go down to Egypt and they would be there. Well, he said basically from that point in time of Abraham, in 400 years, your descendants who went down to Egypt would be delivered from Egypt. And do you realize that it's been 400 years since the pilgrims came to America? And I wonder if there's any prophetic alignment there. I know that's really off subject.
Oh, James has something to say on that.
Is there a prophetic alignment?
Let him talk.
All right, James, what do you think?
A while back, I did a study on Egypt and America. And Jonathan Cahn actually has a really good teaching. And I don't know. I mean, if you go and look at 9/11 and then go to Isaiah 9/11 in the Bible, and you will see the prophetic significance of those two, of what happened at 9/11 and what happened here in America. But over and over again, history repeats itself. Yahweh says, or Solomon says, that there's nothing new underneath the sun. What's happened before will happen again. History does that. And the thing is that I truly believe we are living in a spiritual Egypt here. And the world has become Egypt. Not just America. It basically, the world has become the spiritual Egypt. And that's where we get the second Exodus from. There's again going to be an Exodus, just as there was. Basically, that's why Paul says that basically everything that happened to them in Egypt was a sign for us because of what Yahweh's going to do in these last days. And he is going to free us from this bondage. We are in invisible chains. We don't see the chains that are on us, the yoke that's around our neck, but he's going to free us from that yoke. But definitely America is definitely spiritual Egypt or Babylon, or, it's always been the Chaldeans, the Babylon, Egypt. And now we live in this land that people don't even realize they're in bondage. And I don't know how much they realized they were in bondage back then over and over again. But the one thing that I thought too was weird is, if my father comes to me and says, hey, you're going to be freed from this bondage that you're going to be in Egypt, and he gives this warning, I feel like I'd want to go across the world and get out of Egypt so that I didn't go into bondage. But they're like, we'll just stay. We'll hang out. But you just see, we are definitely living in Egypt today, and that's why we're called to be set apart. We're called to come out of her, my people. And it's that. But the cool thing is that when we do walk in his way, we bear much fruit, and it's easily visible to the world. Whenever, sorry, I see we're running out of time, but when we do his ways, we bear that fruit. People can see it.
Right. Yeah, very interesting. It was at the end of the bondage in Egypt is when their eyes were being awakened, that they were so desperate when they realized how enslaved they were. Well, isn't it that what's happened in our nation, that there's been an awakening to the Hebraic roots of our faith, that we actually recognize that this land is not our home, that we're actually related and to Israel and all of that stuff. And so, I think there's a lot of parallels there. And thank you, James, for bringing that out. We're at the end where we're actually saying we've come back to the Hebraic roots of our faith. We realize what bondage. They say we're free, we're able to work these jobs, but we're so enslaved into a system that we don't even recognize it. So I recognize it, but some people don't even recognize that rut. The rut is slavery. That rut is an American imposed way upon us, and we need to be set free. So set free from all of that. So very good. Thanks, James. Thanks, Sandy, for bringing the Torah portion, Haftarah, and the discussion around everything else. It was a good show today.
Well, I have something here. I just remembered how this worked. This, it was supposed to have a rubber band. I just found a rubber band. This was from when I was like 5 and 6 years old.
And that is
this is crispy rubber band.
That's
and
the
I
glopper?
couldn't remember how it worked. Now I remember there's a place for rubber bands, so it still works.
The glopper.
So they don't make toys like that anymore.
The glopper. Yeah,
the
glopper. It's a dry willy.
How does she still have a toy from a kid? That thing would have been broken for me. That showed no. You guys take care of your stuff. Women do. Men don't.
Women.
I would have had. I'd have had 9 gloppers.
Well, actually, my brother and sister got one too. We got one at the same time.
I got your brother didn't have a glopper after it was all said and done.
It was. He is no.
It's gone.
It's gone. She got this. She made a little purse for us. She crocheted out of a detergent bottle. So she made a little purse out of a detergent bottle, and I got this.
Yeah, the glopper would have ended up being a gun for your brother.
I'm sure it was.
And that tongue probably broke off by the end of the first day.
I can't believe I remembered that this is supposed to have a rubber band on it. So now I know.
Don't let John try to fix it though. You won't have a glopper anymore.
No, it will. If I do something with it, it'll have something electrical.
Oh, that's scary.
All righty then. Well, hey, it's been a good show today. We appreciate everybody joining with us today. Want some closing remarks regarding Lamb Radio and Lamb Tube here is keep posted with what's happening here on Lamb Tube by going to the Lamb Radio Facebook page. Also, we've got the email updates sent out every not every Sunday morning, every other Sunday morning, and you can sign up on the homepage for that. And the Lamb Events Bulletin, which is found on the Lamb homepage. By the way, I want to put a plug in for the War Room as well. You can put in your prayer requests on that page as well. Let us know what's going on. If you need prayer or you have a praise report, we want to pray with you and celebrate with you when those things happen. Sponsors for Lamb Tube and Lamb Radio. And by clicking on the banners and purchasing from them, those purchases, part of that portion of that goes to support this ministry. And so we want to encourage y'all to check out the sponsors. And when you donate to Lamb Radio and to this ministry, you become a sponsor of the ministry where we go around the world with the good news of Yeshua the Messiah from the Hebraic roots of our faith. And so tomorrow we've got Chameleon Church. So that is Biblical Antidotes for the Modern Man with Alan Aguirre, Jamie Lewis, Tom Collins, and Rabbi Darrell Weinberg. Thank you to my co-hosts today, Miss Sandi Craig and James Myers. And hopefully next week we'll bring Tom back on. But nevertheless, it's been good to have you all. And to say this before we close, be excellent to each other.
Oh, I think it means...
It means be excellent with each other. Shalom. All right. Well, shalom, y'all. Until next time.